Now we're finally here. We can finally get to the James Bond reviews. And yeah, as you can tell, I'm back in my room. It's nice to be back in here. Right now at the office, I'm currently adding a little bit more decor, movie material. So I've ordered more posters, etc. And, when all is said and done, I'll go back and do a tour. And I'll carry the setup back in there. I figure in the meantime, carry the setup back in here, and it's nice to be back in the room, and it's refreshing. So yeah, I haven't been in here since the Kiana marathon. Having my desktop in here, so it's been a few months, but we're here, and like I said, we're going to kick off the James Bond reviews by reviewing and talking about the very first movie, Doctor No. And now, before I get into that, as far as real quick talking about the franchise, I've seen the first few Sean Connery movies and rewatching them again for the reviews. I haven't seen the George Lazenby one, and really I haven't seen any of the Roger Moore 007 films, the Roger Moore era. So this is going to be a first, for me experiencing the Roger Moore era. And same for Timothy Dalton. Really haven't seen any of the Timothy Dalton ones. So, it's going to be a first in that regard. Pierce Brosnan, I love Goldeneye. Goldeneye is a great, if I can get the word out. Goldeneye is a great James Bond movie that I've seen before. Tomorrow Never Dies, for some reason, that's one that I always missed. Like, it would come on TV and I would see a little bit of it here and there, but I haven't seen the film in its entirety. So that I'm going to be able to watch. And, The World Is Not Enough. For some reason, back in the day when I was like 10 or 11, and this is right, maybe a year or so after the film came out, that's one that I would watch quite a few times. I don't know why. Of course, now when I watch the film again, when I get to that movie, I have a feeling that I would change my tune, because back then, for some reason, I liked the movie, but I know now its reputation. But yeah, like I said, for some reason, back then when I was 10 or 11 years old, I would watch that film quite a few times. The Daniel Craig ones, I've seen Casino Royale. I saw that in the theater when it came out. I haven't seen Quantum of Solace or Skyfall or Spectre. So I've only seen one Daniel Craig movie. So yeah, when it comes to the franchise, again, I'm going to be experiencing, the Roger Moore stuff for the first time, the Timothy Dalton ones for the first time. I know that sounds weird, and I don't know why it took me this long in life to, discover the other Bond movies. But here we are. We're going to talk about every movie, each one, and give you my thoughts. And, Dr. No, again, this was the first movie, and to me, this was a very solid beginning for the franchise, and the introduction of the James Bond character, and the plot with this movie. The film kicks off, you have this agent Strangways and his secretary, they're in Jamaica, and they go missing. And this is where, they bring in Bond, James Bond, played by Sean Connery, rest in peace. And he is sent by M to investigate what happened to this agent and his secretary. And with the help of this CIA agent, Felix, played by Jack Lord, and this local native in Jamaica, Quarrel, this character Quarrel, they're trying to figure out, again, what happened to these characters. And that's when they discover this island called Crab Key, and it's locked down. It's operated by this Dr. No character who's very mysterious. And the island is guarded by Dr. No's, men. So James Bond goes to this island with the Quarrel character, and that's where we meet the famous Honey Rider, which, she is the first Bond girl, even though Bond has a couple of girls in the movie prior to that, but Honey Rider is brought in a third act, You see her coming out of the ocean with the picking up the seashells. And that's when they're captured by Dr. No, and James Bond is brought back to his lair, which is very elaborate, very cool lair. And he discovers this plot to where he's disrupting these rocket launches because he's hoping to start tension between the United States and Russia. And he's being backed by Spectre, and James Bond has to stop Dr. No. And that's kind of the plot here. And, again, it's sort of like, like first thoughts on this movie. Again, I think it's a really solid start for the franchise. And it laid the groundwork, for the character. And, getting to some notes here, and I did write down some notes, and I'll look at some other information as well. Kind of go over, a little bit of history. Now, this is based on the 1968 novel by N. Fleming, and although it was the first of the Bond books to be made into a film, Dr. No was not the first of the Fleming novels. Casino Royale was the debut for the character. However, the film makes a few references to the earlier books. Okay, this film makes reference to later books in the series as well. Such as the criminal organization Spectre, which was not introduced until the 1961 novel Thunderball. And Dr. No was produced on a low budget. It was a financial success, and while the film received mixed critical reaction when it came out, it gained a reputation over time as being the best of the installments. And it launched the character of, Dr. No also launched the genre of secret agent films that flourished in the 60s. And I know, reading some comments here and there, on IMDb, that some people feel that the film is dated, that, because, I don't know, maybe they feel it doesn't hold up. I disagree with that. To me, this was a fun, solid, first outing for the character. And some stuff that I enjoyed, and before I get to the cast, I really enjoyed the location of Jamaica, the Jamaican backdrop, and, the characters. We're introduced to the characters in the movie, which the characters were interesting. And I know the director, Terence Young, he directed this, and he would go on to direct From Russia with Love and Thunderball. And I thought he really brought a solid direction to this movie. I thought it was tightly paced, and it had a fun tone to the movie, taking place in Jamaica. And, talking about the cast, again, you have Sean Connery as James Bond. And, Sean Connery he really brought that cool factor to the character. He really brought that, suave and charisma to the character, where he attracted the woman, like he attracted the ladies, and all the men wanted to be like him. He had that factor to Sean Connery had that factor, the way he conveyed and portrayed the character. Again, he had that suave, and he had that charisma that he just oozed. That he oozed that, coolness. And, Sean Connery is the man. And, Sean Connery was great as James Bond. And, the way I like how the movie sets up where he's at the table in the casino. And we're introduced to the character, Bond, James Bond. And I can't do that Sean Connery accent, but I try. But like I said, the way that, he plays this character, he plays it with such a cool, with a presence. That's the word I was looking for. Sean Connery had a presence and a cool factor and a suave and a charisma that nowadays people look at that and call it, it's too masculine. It's too much toxic masculinity. Who gives a damn? But yeah, Sean Connery was the man, and he was great as James Bond. And, looking at the cast too, you have the Honey Rider character, which, let me check something here. Yeah, the character of Honey Rider played by Ursula Andress. Or Andress, my bad. Had to get her name right, but the character of Honey Rider, very memorable Bond girl. And again, she's not the first in the movie. Prior to that, Bond had a couple of little flings here and there. With the Sylvia Trench character, who you see early on in the film. Yeah, Sylvia Trench, she would actually come back, that character, for the next one from Russia with Love. And then after that, they didn't bring her back anymore. But, Honey Rider, again, the way that they introduce that character of her coming out of the ocean and collecting the seashells, and you're just, even Bond in the movie is taken back by, Honey Rider and the accent and the way that, even for 1962, I mean, you see some skin. I mean, you're not going to see, full, all the way full frontal, but, it's just, the bathing suits, But, the actress that played Honey Rider, I thought she was a very good Bond girl. The character of Dr. No, who's our villain that works for Spectre, played by Joseph Wiseman. And I thought he was a really good villain here. And I liked the character. I liked his lair in the film, and the way the lair looked, the facility which Dr. No, operates his facility. I really liked that. I thought the production value that was put into that was well done, and it was very, elaborate. And I'm like, you look at what they were able to do with the production in this movie, and especially when you get to the Dr. No layer, all of this stuff, all of the sets here were built by hand, and everything's practical. It's no green screen effect. And, he has the window where he has the underwater view, with the fish. And I really enjoyed that stuff. And Dr. No with his crushing hand. And then a fun finale where, Dr. No falls into the reactor. So a good comeuppance for the character. But, yeah, Joseph Wiseman did a very good job here. A good, solid villain. And you also have Jock Lord as the Felix character, CIA agent Felix, who would later be played by other people. But apparently, from what I understand, I also wrote this down too in the notes, that they felt, the filmmakers felt that, Sean Connery working with Jack Lord, or Jack Lord working with Sean Connery, that Jack Lord was too cool to, be in the same movie with Sean Connery. So this is the last time you would see Jack Lord, that he was too cool for school. So this is the first time and only time that Jack Lord played the character. You have the character of M, played by Bernie Lee, who is the head of the British Secret Service. You have the local Coral in the film, who is this islander who is working with the CIA agent Felix. And I like that character, Coral. I don't like the way he goes out, though, where they're on the island and they come across the tanks and he's burned alive. And I'm like, I like that character. Why did he have to die? I know that's a spoiler, but I just wish that the character had lived. Lived to the end. But again, I like that character. You have the Miss Taro character, and that's another Bond. I don't know if you would consider her a Bond girl, but there's a scene in the movie between her and Bond where, she's actually a double agent working for Dr. No. But you have her character in the movie, Miss Moneypenny, that character played by Louise Maxwell, and she's the secretary to M. So again, just a lot of cool characters, just a very cool cast of characters here. And that's what makes the film work for me. And I enjoyed, again, Sean Connery's Bond. He had that suave and charisma to his portrayal. Dr. No was a fun villain. The character of Felix, played by Jack Lord, I thought he was good. The character of Coral, played by John Kitzmiller, And from what I understand, he passed away shortly after this film, maybe a couple of years after the film was made. But, again, Terrence Young, I thought he had a solid direction here. It was tightly paced, and the locations, I thought, the film was well shot. Again, I know there's some people out there reading some comments here and there that, and it's not every, comment, but just one or two, comments that people feel that the film is dated, that, this film really doesn't hold up. And again, I disagree with that. This one I had fun with. And actually, if you were to ask me, I actually prefer this a little bit more than the next one. Now, I know the next one, From Russia with Love, is definitely, it's considered a classic, among the best. But I thought this one, again, it just had more of a fun vibe to it, more of a, entertaining vibe with being taking place in Jamaica and the villain and, the Crab Key Island location and Sean Connery's Bond here. It seems like he was having a little bit more fun in terms of dialogue and certain scenes. I mean, you got the scenes in the film with the tarantula on Sean Connery and, just fun quotes. I mean, you got this one scene where, he's being pursued on this mountain and the car goes off the mountain and it's a practical, scene where the car just goes down the mountain and you have a little explosion and this worker's like, how did it happen? And Bond's like, I think they were on the way to a funeral because he was being pursued by a hearse. And then there's another scene where the Miss Taro character had set up Bond and this guy is coming to kill him. This character, this professor. And he had already fired his shots because he thought that, Bond was laying in the bed and they have a little confrontation and 007 kills the professor. He's like, that's a Smith & Wesson and you've had your 6. Pop, pop, So, cool moments like that, some cool dialogue. And, as far as like little notes and stuff, information to read off right here. Contrary to popular belief, Sean Connery was not wearing a hairpiece in his first 2 outings as the character Bond. Although he was already balding by the time Dr. No was in production, but he still had a decent amount of hair, and the filmmakers used varying techniques to make the most of what was left. And by the time of Goldfinger, Connery's hair was too thin, and so he had to use like various toupees for his last outings as the Bond character. And in regards to the tarantula scene, Sean Connery was afraid of spiders, and the shot of the spider in his bed was done with a sheet of glass between him and the spider, which can't be seen in one shot in the movie. When it didn't look realistic enough, there were additional close-ups that were reshot with a stuntman. And so, yeah, that's interesting. And originally, Ian Fleming didn't like the casting of James Bond. The casting, the Sean Connery, because, Bond being English and Sean Connery being Scottish. And Bond, that character was more of an upper class, background, and he was, well, I mixed that up here. I got that mixed up. The Bond character was refined and more educated, and Connery was more upper class, and they thought he was, too rugged for the character, but, when Sean Connery played the character and showed what he can do, and Fleming kind of, changed his opinion. And, I mentioned before how Jack Lord was deemed too cool to, play against Sean Connery in the movie. So, in order to avoid any focus being pulled from Connery, Lord was replaced in Goldfinger. So they got a more conventional actor for that character. Where Bond, they can keep that character in the spotlight. And Lord wanted more money. So there you go. And the end of the movie originally had featured land crabs attacking Honey Rider when Bond rescues her. And it was filmed but the crabs were thought to move too slow to be menacing, and the end was reshot without the crabs. Despite the scene's exclusion from the movie, there is photographs of the earlier ending that can be seen on the special edition DVD. So there you go. But at the end of the day, when it comes to Dr. No, to me, this is a very solid, James Bond film for, the first of the franchise. And again, I know most, and again, a lot of this for me, experiencing the Roger Moore films for the first time, which when I get to that, and this is definitely an experience for me, watching these movies. And even though I didn't read the material that came before, I'm not too familiar with the material, the source material. But like I said before, like the second movie from Russia with Love, I know a lot of people prefer more that it's more of a serious Bond movie because it's gritty and stuff. Like I said, I prefer this more because I thought it was more tightly paced, and I thought the direction was solid. And, this film definitely laid the groundwork for the character. You can say, and I would say, and when I talk about From Russia with Love, while this film laid the groundwork for the franchise, the second movie cemented the character. So I will give From Russia with Love that. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts and review of Dr. No. And I hope you enjoyed this review. And yeah, and I forgot to mention, the gun barrel sequence, which was, first seeing that, and it's a great shot right there. But again, this is my review of Dr. No. Hope you enjoyed my review. And stay tuned for the next review From Russia with Love. So that is next. But thank you for watching, and have a good day.